I woke up and the room was wrong. The light was wrong. The smell was wrong. And the person lying next to me was not my husband.
Morning.
Ryan's voice. Low, careful, like he'd been awake for a while already, watching the ceiling, waiting for me to open my eyes. I sat up so fast the room tilted. My husband was asleep on the living room floor. I could see him through the open bedroom door. He had no idea. Chapter 1. The Housewarming. We'd been married 26 days. The apartment still smelled like paint and new furniture and the specific newness of a life that had just officially started. Jake and I had spent the first weeks unpacking, arranging, debating where things should go, learning each other's habits in a space that was finally ours. The housewarming was his idea.
Just the guys first, he said. Friday night. You cook, I'll handle the drinks. Next week we do your friends.
You want me to cook for 4 grown men?
You're an amazing cook and you know it. They'll love it. Come on. It'll be fun. Ryan's been asking about the place since before we even moved in.
Ryan. Jake's best friend since college. Best man at our wedding 3 weeks ago. The one who'd stood at the altar with Jake and looked so genuinely happy for him that half the guests commented on it afterward. I'd met Ryan maybe a dozen times before the wedding. He was easy company, funny, quick, the kind of person who could talk to anyone and make them feel like the most interesting person in the room. At the wedding, he'd given a speech that made Jake's mother cry. I'd always liked him fine. I'd also noticed, in the way you notice something and immediately decide not to think about it, that he had a specific way of looking at me that went slightly past friendly. I decided not to think about it. I cooked for 4 grown men. Chapter 2. The Bet. Dinner was good. Better than I expected. The nerves of cooking for company had pushed me harder than usual, and the food came out right. Jake's friends were easy guests, genuinely warm, the kind of people who made you feel like you'd known them longer than you had. Chris was the loud one. Tyler was quieter, observant. Ryan sat across from me and was exactly as easy as I remembered. Attentive, funny, making everyone feel included. He also refilled my wine glass twice without being asked. I noticed. I didn't say anything. After dinner, someone suggested a drinking contest.
Last one standing takes the pot, Chris announced, slapping the table. 200 each. 1 million total. Same pace, same glass. No switching drinks.
That's not fair, Jake said, grinning. Sophie's going to destroy all of you.
Then we should be worried about Sophie, Ryan said.
He said it lightly. He was looking at me when he said it. I'm in, I said. The bet started at 9:30. By 11, Chris was horizontal on the couch, one arm over his face, making occasional sounds to confirm he was still alive. Tyler lasted another 20 minutes before sitting down on the floor and simply not getting back up. That left 3 of us. Jake, Ryan, me.
Okay, Ryan said, pouring another round. Now it gets interesting.
Jake was already fading. I could see it in the way he was holding himself upright by effort rather than equilibrium. He lasted 2 more rounds before he looked at me with the specific expression of someone surrendering with dignity.
Babe, I'm done. I'm so done. He laughed and leaned back against the couch. Ryan, take care of my wife. Always, Ryan said.
Jake was asleep on the living room floor within 10 minutes. And then there were 2. Chapter 3. Last one standing. The apartment was quiet now, except for the low hum of the city outside and the occasional sound of someone shifting in their sleep in the living room. Ryan poured 2 more glasses.
You're impressive, you know that? Jake told me you could drink, but I thought he was being a proud husband.
He wasn't exaggerating.
No, he really wasn't. He set the bottle down and looked at me. That look again, the one I'd decided not to think about. Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Are you happy with all of this? The apartment, the marriage, Everything moving this fast.
It was a strange question for 11:30 on a Friday night with my husband asleep 6 feet away. Yes, I said. Why?
Just checking. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Jake's my best friend. I want to make sure he's doing right by you.
He is.
Good. He picked up his glass. He's lucky. I want you to know I think that he's genuinely lucky.
The way he said it didn't sound entirely like a compliment to Jake. I drank. He drank. The room got warmer. At some point, the drinking contest stopped mattering. We were sitting closer than we'd started. I wasn't entirely sure when that had happened. The apartment was dark except for the kitchen light, and Jake's breathing was slow and even from the floor.
Sophie.
Don't, I said.
I haven't said anything yet.
I know what you're going to say.
Do you?
I looked at him. He looked back. And then, in the apartment I shared with my husband of 26 days, with Jake asleep on the floor 10 feet away, the evening went somewhere neither of us was supposed to let it go. Chapter 4. Morning. I woke up and the room was wrong. The light, the smell, the weight of someone beside me who wasn't Jake.
Morning.
I sat up. The room tilted. I pressed my hand to my forehead and waited for it to steady. Through the open bedroom door, I could see Jake on the living room floor, still asleep, face turned to the side, chest rising and falling slowly. I looked at Ryan. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't fully read. Not guilty, exactly. Something more complicated. Like he'd made a decision last night and had spent the early morning hours sitting with it.
He didn't wake up, Ryan said quietly. He's fine, he drank a lot.
You need to go, I said, right now, before he wakes up.
Sophie.
Ryan, please. He held my gaze for a moment. Then he got up, quietly, and gathered his things with the practiced efficiency of someone who understood that speed mattered more than conversation right now. At the bedroom door, he paused.
For what it's worth, I've thought about you for a long time. Last night wasn't nothing for me. I just want you to know that.
Go, I said. He went. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the front door close softly behind him. Then I went to the kitchen, put water on for bean sprout soup, and began the careful work of making the morning look completely ordinary. Chapter 5. The Fragments. The soup helped. Everyone woke up slow and grateful, and the food settled the conversation into the easy, comfortable register of people who'd had a good night and were mildly suffering for it. I showed them the video I'd taken, evidence of myself as the last one standing, and they transferred the money without argument. 200,000 won each, just like we'd agreed. Jake put his arm around me and said I was unbelievable. I smiled and refilled his water. Ryan ate his soup without looking at me directly. When he left, he hugged Jake, clapped him on the shoulder, said it was a great night. At the door, he glanced back at me once. I looked away first. For the next few days, the fragments came back in pieces. Not a full picture, more like impressions. The warmth of the kitchen light, the specific quiet of the apartment after everyone else had gone under, the moment when the distance between us had closed and neither of us had moved back. My husband moved through those days completely unaware. He texted Ryan on Monday about watching a game together. Ryan replied normally. Everything looked the same from the outside. I told myself it was finished, that it was one night, too much to drink, a situation that had gotten away from both of us, and the only reasonable thing to do was let it stay in the past where it belonged. Chapter 6. The Second Time. Ryan came by on Thursday. Jake was at work. I knew that. Ryan knew that too. When the doorbell rang, I stood in the hallway for a long moment before I answered it.
I shouldn't be here, he said when I opened the door. I know that. I couldn't stop thinking about it, about you. I keep telling myself to leave it alone, and then I'm standing outside your building at 2 in the afternoon like an idiot.
You are an idiot, I said.
I know. He looked at me steadily. Are you going to let me in?
I looked at him. I thought about Jake, about 26 days of marriage, about the soup I'd made and the video I'd taken and the careful, ordinary morning I'd constructed out of nothing.
Sophie, tell me to go and I'll go. I mean it. You say the word and I walk away and we never talk about Friday.
The hallway was quiet. I stepped back from the door. He came in. The afternoon light fell through the windows of the apartment I shared with my husband, and Ryan and I stood in the kitchen, where Jake had fallen asleep 3 nights ago, and neither of us pretended, this time, that we didn't know exactly what we were doing. Afterward, he sat at my kitchen table and looked around the apartment, at the framed photos on the shelf, at Jake's jacket on the hook by the door, at the life that had been carefully assembled in 26 days.
What do we do now? He asked.
I don't know, I said honestly.
I don't want to hurt him. You know that. He's my best friend.
Then you should have thought about that before you came back.
Yeah. A long pause. I should have.
He left before Jake came home. I stood in the kitchen for a while after the door closed, looking at the 2 coffee cups on the counter. Then I washed them both, put them away, and waited for my husband to come home. That's where this story ends. Thank you for listening. If this one stayed with you, subscribe, leave a like, and turn on notifications. See you in the next one.